the centre of your world, to be the centre of the earth, of metal core and molten lava, vulvas of the globe do burn, to be a sickened visionary, to be eternal wicked truth, submit to evil, bones to sin, to claw the walls back up to you, to be the chanting oracle, the ever-flowing pinnacle, to cry in blood, scream in lightning, puking, cynic, cyclical, to be anointed chosen one, heathens will all pray to thee, nirvana, bliss in loneliness, to wear their eyes upon your spleen, to be your aching goddess slave, fragile ruin, fragmented girl, not afterthought, mouthful of dirt, to be the centre of your world. Thank you.
So that's just a little something about me as a person, and apparently I wasn't even mic'd up, but I am quite loud.
All those years as a drama kid clearly paid off. Hello, welcome to Nottingham Poetry Festival with
Joelle Taylor. It is an absolute privilege to be introducing and hosting this evening. My name is Tom Seddon, also known as Art Hold Tom. Hold for applause.
Thank you so much for doing that of your own volition with no prompting whatsoever. I really appreciate it. I have one more number to... I'm not in drag. What am I doing? Sorry. I have one more piece to set the scene before introducing our co-headliner. I won't say warm-up. Absolutely not.
The tension as I find my page, because
This keeps cutting out.
Oh, use the other one. If you told me sooner and I didn't notice, I'm really sorry. If you're like, use the other one. Off to such a good start, aren't we? Thank God I'm not headlining, eh? It's a dog and pony show. No, I'm kidding. Okay, to set the scene of this fabulous queer extravaganza, I thought that I would share something which is about my lived experiences growing up queer in a town of no less than 2,000 people. That was fun. This is called Blossoms. We aren't meant to be so close to the river this late. The sky relents, only steel blue wisps of cloud remain from a desert dry day. They move along in lackadaisical waves as we throw rocks into the twilight, listening out for the impact. My cracked, soft hands are deceitful as they grapple too long in the dirt. You know I'm always rummaging for the heaviest of stones. I chance a smile in your direction, show you my nails full of the earth. It's all I've ever wanted, being alone with you. 2 nights before, we'd had a party, and no one showed up, but afterwards, my parents still had to clean. We'd consumed the spoils of war and shoplifting until the contents of bright, loud packets dribbled and spat from our laughing gobs. Flamingo pink saliva and citrus-scented sick all hit the cream living room carpet. A candy floss haze now haunts beneath the rug, the mark a recollection of shame. With spoons full of sugar, I take my discipline. We've always favored painting with textures above pigments. We carve sculptures with words of birds with metal beaks and houses like jack-o'-lanterns. We suck at making jewelry out of flowers, preferring to plant poisonous root vegetables. We'll feed them to the neighboring children, the ones who made fun of us, just for sitting on the garden wall and venturing no further. We forge our stories about dragons, about wizards, about robots, acid rain and blizzards, about pirates and spaceships and monsters and guns and ninjas and fairies and heroes that don't run, hide, or fade. Like sugar-laced vomit under baking soda, soapy water, lemonade. We are our own highway, drive out on the daily, feet slapping on the pavement because our wheels are concealed from hungry-eyed imaginations. We free animals from cages, return them to their homes, knowing they will thrive and breed, and nature will correct itself. You and I pull plugs out of walls, smash gadgets, and open windows to let all weathers in. You get under my skin. The world's no longer watching. You get to know my reflection, reaching through this glass flesh with shaking hands and trembling, saying, "You know you're all right with me." The lawn is our film set. The oak tree is our audience. Hour after hour, we devise our magnum opus, an expression we don't understand, but it sounds killer important. We parade and we play, projecting light through negative strips to record images in the cutting room dark. The air grows so erratic. The drizzle drops move like a swarm. They never seem to settle and hover in spirals. The clapperboards snap shut with crashing blasts of thick winds. Sometimes we tire of telling stories. When curtains are drawn and no one takes notice, he holds my hand and strokes my hair. He shows me love exists between boys as the last of my toys are packed up for the attic. I drown in the noise of adolescence. The licks and lashes of lizard tongues, the holes and horns that bore us, speak all the words we need to say. We tremble under covers with quick hands and quicker thoughts, move beneath linen and beyond elastic. My hands are cold, but delusion is warm. We stretch out in the moment, relish the confusion, like I'll never wear a stitch in time again. Thank you. Thank you so much. Honestly, it is an absolute pleasure to be here, and it's going to be an incredible night. So, are you ready for your first official performer? I'm used to working at drag shows, so I do appreciate when people get rowdy at poetry. Thank you so much. So, we have Gregory Woods this evening, who is the author of 6 poetry collections from Intermission Press, the latest being Records of an Incitement to Silence, published in 2021. His main books on gay cultural history are published by Yale University Press, no less, and he's the Emeritus Professor of Gay and Lesbian Studies at Nottingham-Trent University. And I like to remind him every once in a while that he actually wrote one of the letters of recommendation that got me on the MA in Creative Writing at Nottingham-Trent, so this is partially his fault. Please put your hands together for Gregory Woods.
Thank you. Thank you. Come, hungry muses, sink your fangs into the rancid meat of things. Give us another of those songs that fizz the spittle on your tongues. Descend on us in raucous gangs, tattooed and sporting nipple rings. Evacuate those tarry lungs and goad us with your humour's prongs. Conciliate your hunger pangs with scraps of life, the random slings and arrows felt by human throngs. Foregather where the tyrant hangs and harry anyone who brings to human rights inhuman wrongs. Thank you. I always think of the Muses as a marauding gang of lesbian avengers with a progressive agenda. And so I thought that would be a suitable start for this evening's performance. The point of this evening is to celebrate Joelle Taylor and c.nto, and the prize, the award of the T.S. Eliot Prize. A great kind of moment in our cultural history. And when I was invited to take part, I was really pleased for that reason, really, to be here and to kind of, for it to rub off on me. And it was suggested that I should, in some way, introduce the evening by talking about how far we've come to reach this point. Thank you. I'm going to start with a sonnet I wrote recently about the last two men who were executed in this country for sodomy. Not all that long ago, well, it seems a long time ago, 1835, but it's only a few generations ago. And I wanted to record their names. Charles Dickens went to Newgate Prison when he was a young reporter writing under the pseudonym Boz. And he wrote an article about these two men who were down in the deepest dungeon. But he didn't name them, and he didn't name their crime. Boz in Newgate. Two lifeless shadows haunt the lower cell, denied what sympathy we grant the living. Already in an anteroom of hell, they feel the glare of God, the unforgiving. Convicted of a crime the news reports deodorize in Latin or leave nameless, unworthy of the mercy of the courts, suppose such cryptic brotherhood were blameless. How can it be the cockroach and the rat seem innocent, while men consensus shames attract a sentence with no caveat? The sullen jailer never says their names, but once the trap has dropped, will Smith and Pratt allow us the impertinence of John and James? John Smith and James Pratt, the last two men executed for sodomy in this country. The death penalty was eventually abolished in 1861. I recently wrote a book called Homintern, copies available at the bookstore, about international networks of lesbians and gay men, a subject that's interested me for many years. And I got to know all sorts of friendships, often very unlikely friendships between different characters. And I wrote a poem about one of these friendships, a special relationship between an American butch lesbian, the great American novelist Willa Cather, a woman of the prairie from Nebraska, and an English aristocrat, sissy, camp gay man, very bad writer, rather a bad painter as well, called Stephen Tennant. But they formed quite a close friendship. So I wrote a poem about them using the rhyme words boy and girl, this boyish girl and this girlish boy. It's in two parts. One, how like a girl he is, so eager to enjoy as much attention as a people can unfurl, a budding Helen of, anticipating Troy. Gregarious, his habitat the social whirl, from country house weekend to tea at the Savoy. Coquettish with both farmhand and decrepit earl. But crossed, there's not an oath he'd scrupled to deploy against them all, as if he'd hoarded words to hurl at them like petty thunderbolts. How like a boy. 2. How like a boy she is, with not a flounce or curl to soften her. She bristles like an Iroquois, her style adopted from a place where dust storms swirl and bison roam, as if created to destroy mere femininity. Yet it would take a churl to overlook the Venus in her corduroy. Addressing her is casting swine before a pearl, and boldly though she breasts the prairie, ship ahoy. She needs a swell to buoy her up. How like a girl. Under Italian fascism, changing the subject slightly, a lot of gay men were rounded up and sent into exile, internal exile, on a barren island in the Adriatic called San Domino. Now, you might think this was a bad thing, but most of them had a positive experience from this because they found each other in their imprisonment. Banished to the fringe, but coming home, from isolation to a crowd of us, protecting our powder-pale faces with makeshift parasols, no longer watched by family, priest, teacher, neighbor, employer. We see in each other that look in the eye, a recognition, kindred spirits, kindred flesh. In unpropitious times, a girl must have her wits about her, not to mention her mascara, or failing that, a smudge of soot. We're having the time of our lives, within ourselves. We dress as we wish, and behave as our fathers would not. We preen each other's plumage, gentle, virtuous birds, companions of Diomedes. Herded into this collective, reliant on each other's favors, a whispered word can dry a tear. Is it any wonder there are times we dread forgiveness, the chill threat of release? The rocks are bare with little shade, and nights are spent locked in each other's company. No electricity, no running water, but dreaming of something like this. I wanted to read that one because in a lot of Joelle's poems, there's this very strong sense of community and of the importance of community, the strength of emotion, the strength of support that community gives people who would otherwise quite possibly be very isolated. And there's also this kind of implicit sense of the danger of losing one's community. We are losing lots of the signs of our community. We've lost the lesbian and gay press that there were back in the 80s and 90s, 70s, 80s, 90s. We're losing so many of the gay venues. And this is something that worries a lot of us. The period, of course, when community was of most importance to us was the AIDS epidemic, particularly in the 1980s, when we were under sustained attack. Gay men in particular were under sustained attack from the tabloid newspapers and from Tory politicians. We seem to be coming around in a big circle here. And the strongest support that we got, that was immediate, came from our lesbian friends, or indeed from lesbian strangers. And there was a very, very strong sense of coming together, of community. So I want to read, just keeping an eye on the time, a poem that I wrote actually for the Gay Project here in Nottingham, the health project that was based in Broad Street. I wrote it for a Safer Sex leaflet, but it was never actually published in a leaflet. It's a Safer Sex poem anyway. It doesn't need much explanation. My lover loves me with kid gloves. That is, no matter who's above and who beneath, we use a sheath. We never screw without a condom. He holds me in such high regard, he shields me like a bodyguard. Although love's dart has hit my heart, he fired it safely in a condom. Security is what we crave to save us from an early grave. Our greatest wealth, each other's health, safely invested in a condom. Whenever he comes home from work, he brings me bribes, inducements, perks. But of his gifts, the one that lifts my spirit most's a pack of condoms. Although his clothes are always fine, Comme des Garçons and Calvin Klein, he looks his best when he's undressed, yet even better in a condom. Among the catalogue of skills which generate our thrills and spills, his special knack is to unpack, unroll, and lubricate a condom. Without the taste for being chaste, we use a lube that's water-based and take great care never to tear the tender membrane of our condom. As long as he takes care of me, I am not scared of HIV. My lover loves me with kid gloves, but loves me most of all with condoms. Our treatment of asylum seekers has been utterly degrading to our national body politic. And I've been particularly upset by stories of lesbian and gay asylum seekers turning up in this country and having to prove their sexuality. How the fuck do you do that? Other than, well... So I wrote a poem about a particular man who I'd read about from Uganda, who'd been hounded out of Uganda, had to hide his sexuality in Uganda, but was bullied and threatened there, and came over here and had to prove who he is. This is a poem called The Evidence of Things Not Seen. It's in two parts. One, Kampala. Discretion was his only scant asylum from hostility. For fear of being beaten, he concealed the truth about himself, defensively unclubbable. Policing gesture, gait, and tone of voice, he made a habit of performance, always speaking lines he'd learnt by rote, if not by heart, avoiding being judged as what society would not condone. The evident is not the self. 2, London. But now, the apparatchiks of identity require him to be more identifiable. A fluent wrist, a swish, a lisp, a love of Broadway musicals. Whatever, short of bodily corroboration on the desk, might constitute defining proof. Their unresponsive faculties, insensitive to nuance, fail to register a simple truth. The self is not self-evident. I'll just read 2 more poems. I'm trying to flog my new poetry collection. Well, new, it came out last July. It's mainly a collection of unrhymed sonnets, but don't let that put you off. When I wrote it, it's kind of set in an imagined past that was originally suggested to me by the civil wars in the ex-Yugoslavia, this idea of warfare in a Europe that was falling apart instead of coming together. It's a book about the way that private lives are disrupted and ruined by public events. And in a world full of turmoil. And I've found that the book has suddenly become rather about the present rather than the past, and indeed about the future. Anyway, I came to Nottingham in 1990. This is a poem about Nottingham. City of Love. It's a poem about the forest recreation ground, I suppose. You left the city. I decided to stay on. The faces were familiar, the buildings even more so. It was as if all sounds and smells were smells and sounds of you, the trams, the sirens, drunken laughter, breaking glass. I'd not have been surprised, revisiting the bench where we first met, to find a label screwed to it. The British poet Woods ejaculated here. A friend of mine had that plaque made, and we're still trying to decide which bench to screw it to at some point. I'll just read one more poem. Just this sense of a relationship between what we thought was past history and the present. If I can reflect back on the whole of my reading this evening, I'm very anxious about the way that history can repeat itself. That we always feel as if we're hitched up to progress, to things getting better, to the kind of liberal consensus being more and more successful. Well, if you just think about what's happening with Roe versus Wade in the United States at the moment, and the threat that then has to things like gay marriage, or indeed even to contraception, these are unthinkable changes that could actually be very, very imminent, given the kinds of politics that are holding sway at the moment. So, in a sense, looking back over the book, it's rather an elegiac book, this, full of all sorts of regrets that I've never trusted old people who say, I don't regret a thing. I can hardly think of anything that I don't regret. And in a way, that's my proof that I've lived. That, oh my God, did I do that? So I'll just end with a kind of open-ended elegy. I think of it as an AIDS elegy because it's about a particular person that I knew. But it doesn't specify that. And actually, the more I read it, the more I think it's an elegy for the present and the future, unless we kind of guard our communities and guard our future. I'm running over time. I'll just read this one poem. At midnight, one midnight in 72, I wandered the city with nothing to do. I wandered the city as if I were dreaming, the blood in my temples insistently drumming. The doing of nothing took most of the night. So slow was my progress downwind of the light. So slow was my progress, I thought I was dreaming, the blood in my temples insistently drumming. With nothing to guide me or show me my way, I knew where I was as if walking by day. I knew where I was, but I must have been dreaming, the blood in my temples insistently drumming. As if an idea had a substance to clutch, I might have been holding you, warm to the touch. I might have been holding you rather than dreaming, the blood in my temples insistently drumming. Bewildered by doubt as my fancy became, I thought I could hear you saying my name. I thought I could hear you, but I was dreaming, the blood in my temples insistently drumming. In separate places and separate hearts, we blended our voices, exact counterparts. We blended our voices into our dreaming, the blood in our temples insistently drumming. Our throats made the sounds of the pleasures they lacked, unspeakable vices delivered from tact. Unspeakable vices of which we were dreaming, the blood in our temples insistently drumming. At midnight, one midnight, a long time ago, I wrote you these verses, but you didn't know. I wrote you these verses as if you were dreaming, the blood in your temples insistently drumming. Thank you.
My goodness, the wonderful Gregory Woods, everybody. Never in all my life did I think that I would be so emotionally moved and warmed by a poem about condoms. I'll mark that off my bucket list. I didn't even know it was on it. We're going to take a very quick comfort break now for the next 10 minutes. Joelle will be on stage at 1:15, however, so I'd like to see you all back by then. In the break, if you'd like to go and get a drink, that's great. But equally, please do visit the Five Leaves bookstall at the back of the room, and also peruse through your brochures and decide what you would like to book next for the rest of the festival. See you at 1:15. Now, I know that I said 1:15, and it's nearly 20 past. What I should have said was 5 past, then we would have started on time. So I'm just going to do a tiny bit of rambling, luring you in like a siren towards these rocks to crash upon if you would like to take your seats. For Joelle Taylor, please and thank you. So, there we go, yeah. Fingers on lips, bums on seats. No, okay. So, next to the stage for Nottingham Poetry Festival, we have Joelle Taylor. And I do have to read the obligatory bio that I couldn't commit to memory no matter how hard I tried. A misspent youth no longer affords me the luxury of committing things to memory. So, Joelle Taylor is the author of 4 collections of poetry. Her most recent collection, c+nto Othered Poems, published on Westbourne Press, won the 2021 T.S Eliot Prize, no less. And was the subject of a Radio 4 Arts documentary called Butch. A former UK slam champion, she founded the National Youth Poetry Slam's SLAMbassadors through the Poetry Society in 2001, remaining its artistic director until 2018. She is the co-curator and host of Outspoken Live, resident at the Southbank Centre, and an editor at Outspoken Press. She's recently completed a book tour of Australia, including Sydney Opera House in March 2022, and c+nto is currently being adapted for theatre with a view to touring it from 2023. She's also, oh, bloody hell, completing her memoirs for publication in 2023, as well as a novel of interconnecting stories named The Night Alphabet. And yet she had time to come to Nottingham Poetry Festival and perform for you today. Interesting story. I used to work for an organisation called Writing Proud, and we actually booked her in 2019 to come and teach a workshop and then do a headline act at Antenna. And it was that day in July that was so hot that the train tracks buckled. Yeah, she remembers. So I feel like I've manifested my destiny. Not only do I get to see you perform, I get to introduce you. Joelle Taylor, everybody.
This better be vodka. It is. Big up, you mincers. How you doing? You good? Thank you so much, Tom, and thank you, Gregory. Can we have another massive round of applause for that? I feel like the 3 stages of homosexual are represented by the 3 of us. The dark side. Yes, so my name's Joelle and I'm a poet. and I wrote this book called C+nto Othered Poems. I'm going to dedicate this performance to my friend who's sitting over there called Pete Reed, who is not a butch lesbian. Or is he? But was an integral part of the cultural landscape in the moment this book set, and was one of my very important group of friends, and remains a very good friend. So this book is set in the late 80s, early to mid 90s in London. I just want to set the scene, what it was like being homosexual then, particularly being a big fat leser. You know, like how now Demi Lovato comes out as non-binary on Instagram, and like everyone loses their fucking shit, and everyone's crying, and there's bloody unicorns. What is this unicorn thing? Fucking unicorns, dildos on heads, everything's coming down, going mental, which is amazing. It's amazing. I really want people to have that experience of being valued when they make a huge life decision. But back in the day, the most important word in the sentence coming out was out. Yeah? You didn't come out, you got out, or you get out. And that was my experience growing up. You made a choice. I'm from Lancashire, by the way. You made a choice between your family and your friendship group and your community and who you were. And that was it. And so began what I like to think of as the great migration of the gays. Like geese. Like geese, but little gays, ones and twos, from all across the UK, flocked down to London. And speaking, this entire gig really is for dykes, it's for butch dykes, and I'm so happy to see other people in the room. I'd heard about you, but and it's really joyful that you're getting represented, that you're in this space. But this is for the butches, it's for the dykes. What it was like is not only were you exiled from your family and your community, and we all know about homophobia, but it was a very constant thing. It was in the fabric, it was in the air, you know, so we internalized a lot of that homophobia. So when the great migration of the gays happened, I remember being ugly, very, very, very ugly, and very unloved, and it was a measure of space. If you think about the difference between being alive and not being a measure of space, it's the width of a door. So I came down to London, and it was a door like this, and on this side, I was really ugly and exiled and unloved, and the door opened, and I was handsome. And that was really, really what the book's about. It's that shallow. So, me. So it's part memoir and part conjecture. And I'll talk a little bit about the characters in the book, because they are real people. The book begins when a series of vitrines, which are like glass cabinet display cases that you find in museums or art galleries, begin to appear around London, around the whole UK, outside all the spaces that have been taken away from us. And remember that there's only one lesbian bar left in London, and it's not that lesbian. I've been, and they all went like that. They're not lesbians. They love me. But much of our infrastructure has been taken away. Things like the Lesbian and Gay Centre, all the sort of meeting spaces, all the dyke bars, the dive dyke bars. And these were important spaces because alcohol, because community, because they were as much post offices and community centres as there were places to get some really good MDMA. For example. So I wanted to write into that. We're in a very disrupted time within the LGBT plus community in which we are forgetting things that formed us. We're forgetting the importance of this right here, and how hard it is to argue with somebody who's sitting in front of you is actually quite scary. But, you know, that sense of physicality I think is really important, and so it's written into that space. So these vitrines start appearing, and inside of them are important moments that I have witnessed in LGBT history, or I've been present, alive during. So, for example, there's a big one with the bombing of the Admiral Duncan. We all know about that, yeah? Yeah. There's a smaller one, which is a museum of first kisses. There's the best night out I had in heaven, dancing. Okay, anyway, it doesn't matter. But all these important moments are saved and preserved for now, because it's a time of emergency. If you don't know what's happening to gay people or queer people, or whatever you want to call us, the world over, take a quick Google. We're fucked. In one of these vitrines, which is a snow globe, is a bar, an entire bar called the Maryville, and that's where we're going to go right now. And the Maryville is based on all the dirty oases that I visited in my beardless youth. Some of the poems are written as scene directions, but the poems, yeah, you get me? Yeah. Scene 1. Exterior, night. A main road in London, LX1. Street lamps watch a woman pass and text each other, FX1. The sound of a door opening into a chest cavity. A lone woman walks briskly, head down, holding invisible bouquets. Ahead of her is a hunched building with its hands in its pockets, bracketed by gossiping fairy lights. LX2. A neon sign flashes its pink dilate. Maryville, the sign says. The woman pushes open the door and enters her own body. At the bar, she orders a drink, and when it arrives, it is her breath. Music is playing. It's the sound of someone being listened to. She notices that she's sitting at every table. When the woman asks her to dance, the whole of the past stands up to dance with her. Her classmates, her teachers, the manager of the shop she worked in over Christmas, the newspaper proprietor, the street she grew up on, an adjacent town, her parents and grandparents, the kid who waited for her after school. The song ends, the world opens, Venus rises. If any of you are doing a study on just how shallow I am, I moved to London, to Brixton, a place called Acre Lane, because it was next to the biggest lesbian club in Europe, and the name of which was Venus Rising. So, this is called A Lesbian Walks into a Bar. Oh, holy church of Maryville, on our knees by Sunday, looking up our own skirts. The tables are a strange atoll, each with its own customs, but we share a root language. A lesbian walks into a bar, or a bar walks into a lesbian, what it is to arrive, what it is to become. Oh, holy. I stand at the bar side, knowing when I look up, I will be serving myself. And when I'm done, that I will take the drinks to a table where I am waiting. And later on, I'll give glad eye to a girl, and she will be me. Thank you. What I really love is the way you're acting like I'm doing like some rock and roll, everything I do. So the poems are going to get smaller and smaller, but you get louder. Okay. So in the Maryville bar, fictitious bar, but a very real space inside me. And this book is a book of grief. I'm belonging. So I'm grieving my scene. I'm grieving this fucking chaos that's going on at the moment. I'm grieving the fucking chaos that's coming. and I'm grieving particular people. So these 4 butches are based on real human beings, and there are 4 of them, and they navigate the night. They make sure that everybody in the space is safe. And people look at butches and think we're kind of on a spectrum from female to male. It's not true. Not in the old language anyway. We are the mothers of the scene. It's a very maternal role, just good at football. I'm so bad at football. We were quite gay, the butches, in the 90s, though. So there's Jack Catch. In the stage play, I play Jack Catch. And Jack Catch is a kind of very old school, late 50s, 60-year-old butch, dapper, nice houndstooth suit. Then there is Dudzili, who's her best mate. And Duds is a Ugandan LGBT, or lesbian, refugee escaping corrective rape out there. And then there is Angel. Angel's the youngest of the crew, and is a boy, B-O-I. Every time I say boy, I mean boy. It's a young butch. And she's very close. So we're a community that's based on trauma. And I don't, for example, I did an interview recently, and I said, no, I don't identify as a man. Dickhead. I identify as freedom. I identify as survival. That's what I come from. I identify as doing what the fuck I want with my life, yeah? So with Angel, she's still very close to the source of trauma and still quite violent. And then there is Valentine. Valentine's a stud, which is a black butch and is the sort of heartthrob Leatherdyke of the book that won the T.S. Eliot Prize. Who knew? How? Okay, this is called Valentine. Born, right body, wrong day. Valentine flicks her lighter in the corner of the club, and white women flutter. Tonight, she has dressed as the inside of a mouth, a hand-sewn suit excised from a cured night sky black. Leather has its own skincare routine. It listens to its mother. I've heard it said, some girls give birth to themselves from the backs of motorbikes. Invent the wind, let the road uncurl from between their legs, the lemniscate motorway, something British and unbidden. I know why we're drawn to the corners. It's where the road cannot reach us. Every part of a woman is a weapon if you know how to hold her, Valentine says. The corner flicks and morphs, and in the dark, white hearts beat like moths against a headlight. Do you know what? You see then, you went from rock and roll to frottage. No, it's not frottage, is it? Dressage. So now I'm going to do Angel's poem. Like I said earlier, Angel's much closer to the source of trauma. And, you know, throughout the book I look at the idea of women and violence and you know, how we deal with our rage and our trauma, because we don't really get to deal with rage. We don't get to be that unreasonable unless you go to prison, which is not as much fun as it's made out to be. So this is Angel. When Angel looks in the mirror, it looks away first. Star-fist, open jaw, how the shine becomes you, clean friend. Taller than yesterday's spine and unraveling plot you, odd insistence. My king of the blue tattoo, eyebrow pinned Prince Butterfly. When you walked in the room, it became you. how you brought the silence in with you, how you brought the night to its knees, back there where the quiet ones go, and now the night won't stop texting. How many times have we walked home, you and I, only to find home walking swiftly behind us? I have seen you leap over language to push a man back inside himself, throw pint glasses like seeds, speak to every woman as though she were your mother. I have seen your fists sob. At the center of every boy is a bare room, and inside a swinging light bulb, a wire-thin girl dances, stays with you, even when you look away. Angels don't fall from heaven. They leave at closing time. Thank you. No, it's not finished. Unscrew their fucks in the backs of black cabs, abandon their bodies beneath a girl, beneath a duvet, beneath the wet, dilated night, on fire. Frottage. So, let's see, is that Duds? Yeah, so Dudzilly in the stage play. We cast it already, by the way. So we did, it's called C+nto the Musical. And the director keeps saying, stop telling The Guardian, The Independent it's a musical, because you can't sing. What does it matter, Rob? Oh, what does it matter? No, the idea, C+nto the Musical, the notion is, inside the vitrines, there'll be loads of vitrines there with bits of our history, and I'm not talking about like the usual things you'd have vitrined. Things like a burning cigarette, you know, things like a bit of a scuffed leather jacket, something that's very personal, smells, that stuff, maybe not. And what I really wanted, either aside of the stage, or what I want, is all the old DJs vitrined in big glass cabinets, so the old DJs from the Bell in London, Princess Julia, because that would be wild, and to have that kind of thing going on beside it. So I don't know why I'm telling you that. Anyway, Duds is because the stage play. So Duds in the stage play was just extraordinary. It's played by Veronica Fearon, who's, you won't fuck with her. This is called The First Stone. You know what stone means, yeah? Stone is buy the book and it will tell you. Here we are. There we go. A stone is, I'm a stone. A stone butch is somebody who prefers not to be touched. Tweed understands the idea of knows where to press, who to call, how to thread a sheep through a lion, remembers how like a field it is, how like freedom. And the waistcoat knows when it needs to clench her jacket, and elder Butch's arm across her shoulders thinks, is the only way out, woman, man. How can the exit also be the fire? Dudzilly does not get dressed. She unlearns, drapes her ancestors around her, is wearing a suit of ghosts tonight. Look how she shines, how they stand beside her and speak through her. They say, be careful, my mannish daughter. Walk backward. The first stone is returning. Thank you. So I forgot to tell you, the book is a narrative. It's a story, which I won't spoil for you, so I'm going to. It's a story, and all the way through, this idea of the first stone returning is prevalent, as is the O, Oh, it's quite obvious. Everybody knows what it is. Yeah? It's a cunt. Hello, everyone. A womb. It's a portal. What is it? It's a little window. Whatever. And the stone, because we talk about Stonewall, you know. Stonewall is such a huge thing to my community. It's massive. Who threw the first stone? Who threw it? It goes on and on and on. Well, here is the news. We got decriminalisation of homosexuality in the UK 2 years before Stonewall. It really wasn't the beginning of gay activism. It's an important moment within it. And the idea of the stone returning is if the world is round. Have you noticed that? Awkward. It's quite round. And then, so if you throw something, it goes all the way back. And we have to be very careful that it's not weaponized against us, which is what I believe is happening now. So let's do Jack Catch, the last of the characters, played by me, if I can ever find her. And like I said, Jack is the kind of the most mystified of the Butches. In the stage play, what happens is the whole c.nto the musical is set within a snow globe, and everybody's dead. It's a haunted bar, apart from Jack Catch, which is a bit shit, because all the other characters get to fly on trapezes and things, and I just walk around looking like a middle-aged dyke. It's like, shit. It's a hard role to play. So this is Jack. Jack Catch, in her hound's tooth suit, ox blood brogues, knitted tie, sharpens the air she walks through. The room sucks its stomach in, tries not to look. She can undo a bar with one hand. Old school, preserved in the amber of lager. Maryville is aspic, fixing all the silverbacks at 7:32 p.m. 1994. Hair you could picnic on. Bring the family. Aftershave is a happy man. The music has been remembering its childhood, scratching its hazy outline for hours when Soho and her girls walk in. The side streets slung around their necks as feather boas, each wearing her mother pinned to her breast pearls, low-hanging fruit. And the old boys stop talking, each afraid of her own face that it might eat her. But Jack Catch stands, pulls a chair out of her sleeve, tips the barman, taps a cigarette to stand out from the others, and when Soho asks for a light, she is speaking of forgiveness. And when Jack opens her Zippo, she is showing how easy it is to burn, how aspic dissolves, and now the silverbacks look toward saloon doors that never open. Young things, Eddie and Glamour, are paintings of themselves. And old Jack Catch straightens the crease in her houndstooth, says, Jesus, are all women female impersonators? Says, everything is running back inside. There are new words for words. And surveying the club mutters, I remember when all of this was a loose stone in a wall. Thank you. Frottage. I get this thing about when people clap, you know, people always do the poetry clap. So the poetry clap goes like this. It's like everywhere. Doesn't matter where you're in the entire world. Singapore. Hemel Hempstead. Anyway, right, let's just, now I've made you comfortable. Let's see what else we can do. So I want to take you into like, you know, when you're trying to write a book, as many of us in the room have, and you try to go into that sense of, to enter a moment. In the same way that performance isn't acting, it's remembering, writing is becoming. It's falling into what you're writing about. And I wanted to let people know what it was like being a young Butch Dyke, a boy, walking into the RVT, place, we used to be called the Royal Vauxhall Tavern, before we got obsessed with acronyms. I couldn't say entire words anymore. Here all week. I feel like that's such blasphemy. RVT. And it was the most incredible sense of belonging. And it was lusty. It was very, very lusty, by the way. Very druggy. Everything you think women aren't, we were. So this is called Summer All Night Long. Boys, soft-skinned and shaven, shelter from the sun in the shadows cast by elder butches, kick balls and catch each other, sketch out a conus with billiards and recreate the moment of conception. There are only so many holes a boy can fall down. Here she is again. And maybe the film reel jumps a little here, by which I mean heart. And when I say heart, what I mean is idea. Boys are newly planted as she passes. There's a reason storms are named after women. Feel their roots reach out to one another. And one boy, to each other, bend into her, yes. And one boy, her tongue a diving board, launches into her fathom. Nothing as concrete as a back clap. Nothing as young as slapped palms. And still, the bar knows what it knows, that a tongue is a bed. And this boy understands how to make it. Origami the sheets into something wild and confident. A swan. Or the Hadron Collider. And they will practice their careful all night. Morning will leave by the back door. Never call. But the boy dreams, thinks, maybe this time something will be born. Thinks, if I had a baby, I would call it Flinch. Too. The music is big boned, takes up the whole of the dance floor, is its own god. Light has poor impulse control. Throws herself at the feet of willow boys while summer waits by the open door, fans herself as boys beg water, reminds us that boys are almost all water in the act of becoming. All the boys swept out of the bar on flash tides of their own belonging. The music is on its knees. Heavy breathing down some girl, the weight of unison almost too much to bear. But the track is bullied back by another song. And as it climbs to its feet, we throw our hands in the air. And when they land, they are someone else's. Two truths can exist in the same space. They lean at opposite ends of the bar, turned away from one another, watching the other's reflection in her pint, her architecture, her present, her unyielding. We are caught in the space between magnetic poles, these old enemies, shouldering the roof, the whole damned sky. If one moves, the other dies. These stones in the river, these deciders of the tide. Might be Tuesday, Thursday, doesn't matter. Maryville is waiting. A woman walks into a bar and nothing happens. Her drink arrives on time and is the taste of a drink. Her friends materialize beside her. The bar boy asks if she's going on to the club, and for a moment, it's okay. Everyone in the bar is everyone she knows. When the night ends, it doesn't. Thank you. So I'm going to skip a little bit. Gregory raised it earlier about the AIDS crisis. You know, there's been so many things that have absolutely scarred the community, and I'm always really, really moved when elder gay men remember that the dykes were there and that there was a time when we were together. And on this tour, a really interesting thing has happened where somebody raised, it was in Australia, and they were like, one of the reasons that we're all falling apart now is that we lost an entire generation of gay men, or most, not everybody, but a huge number of gay men who during the 80s were very feminist, very left-wing, really cute, dance kind of like that. It's so good. But it's an inherited trauma. I know we're not all related, but we're all related, yeah? Anyway, so I wanted to do this poem. This is called Heaven, 1995. And it's set in 1995. And I was out at Heaven. And she's like, no shit, Sherlock. And I'm wearing a little pair of rubber shorts and nothing else. Oh, big boots, obviously, my little skinhead, my little quiff, and I'm losing my shit. And it's around this time for me personally. I've been clubbing for a couple of years by that point around the queer clubs in London. And it was at that point where I started to realize that people were going missing, that they weren't there any longer. And it's, so this is really, it's really about that. I talk about the lighthouse in this poem. The lighthouse is like the gay community centre and hospice, where many of us buried our gay brothers. There's a lot of gay brothers buried out there. If I can ever find the poem, I'll do it for you. 77. It's all right, keep staring at me, weirdos. Fucking get a job. Right, okay, Heaven, 1995. So this whole thing about the book being set in vitrines in these little glass cases started with a friend of mine. I had a girlfriend called Terry O'Leary, Mrs. O'Leary, terrifying woman. And her brother, a gay boy called Richard, was the first person I knew and loved who became HIV positive and then died of Kaposi's sarcoma, which is AIDS. And at his funeral in the lighthouse, he had a whole table of snow globes. And we were all, those of us at the funeral, were invited to take one to remember him by. I've still got it. So when I was writing this book, I just reached for the snow globe. And that's why everything's inside these little vitrines. Heaven, 1995. Vinegar, this moment of belief. Club in a fish tank. Riot, Genesis. A boy touches her fingertip to a light beam, and God winks a wet eye. Maybe the light is an escalator to the afterlife or after party or the part of her body she checked in the cloakroom. But tonight, all of the dead will dance with her. All of the dead are well dressed this evening. They solemn, the escalator descend to the dance. Tequila Mockingbird, hey, releases her wig back into the wild, blows a kiss that exhales into carrion birds, the core of bad lipstick numb beak scattering round white seeds from which Gautier sailors grow, haloed in certainty, their muscles, the shaven heads of women march in, back into their bones, a clearing at the center of them. The butchers peel off their shirts, and underneath, they are children. Salt this boy. How she reaches toward the infinite, this moment between. How she sees the ghosts of those still alive. How she conjures life from life. How the lighthouse winks at the storm. Thank you. I don't know why I'm making myself laugh. You know, you don't know. Doesn't matter. I'm just going to do a couple more poems, and then I'm going to shout at you, and then I'm leaving. Goodbye. So this one is in the stage play. So in the book, if anyone's read the book, the narrative is a little bit difficult to understand because it's the true story. And our lives don't really work in those linear ways, you know. So when I'm talking about the death of a Butch, I'm talking about a very close friend of mine called Kaz, who died, and the things that happened to her. In the stage play, we turn it all into Angel. Basically, what's happening in the story is something that happened all the time to us. So you'd be out dancing, or you'd be out at a pub, and there'd be a group of blokes waiting for the dykes when we left. Or there used to be bricks coming through the window, or just banging on, you know, like that you have like dark windows on gay bars. And everyone's like, oh, it's like literally protection. So what happens in this story is that the guys try to get in the bar. That's all that's happening. Some men outside are trying to get in, and the dykes are trying to keep them out. In the stage play, Angel loses her life. This is called Got a Light, Jack, and I advise you to watch Charlie Josephine do this, because Charlie Josephine's trans-mass, non-binary actor who plays Angel is fucking incredible. Got a Light, Jack. I am wondering if, after I walk into the light, I'll be met by myself, that dead part of me, or whether it'll be the dog who loved me, whose name I can't remember. I was once bitten by a woman so hard I popped out of my skin like, I want to say mango, because mango is poem fruit, but it was more like that time Angel went in without thinking one Sunday afternoon after the afterward and the fictional condom split. This is a gay bar, not the Caribbean, though we are certainly birds of paradox. And the broken cistern might be a waterfall, and the elocution of women fucking might be something edging closer to the beach with tide in its teeth. I never open my mouth when I smile. I don't want to fall out. An empty bed swings in my chest. Is death like running onto the pitch? Will I be there in the center of the field, arms open like club doors, asking me to love me? Thank you. You are full on frottage now. I've been going on for a little bit of time. You might as well just wank. Just get it. God. Oh yeah, sorry. I keep forgetting that. Like everything I do, really sad things, I'm like, yeah! Yeah. So the book is a book of griefs, but it's also a book of belonging. It's a book of rage as well. And It all started when Apples and Snakes, who are the biggest sort of... That's a bit awkward, wasn't it? Sound of one hand clapping. Yeah, sick, mate, thank you. Apples and Snakes are the biggest promoters of live poetry in the country. And they've been here for like about 40 years now. And for their 35th anniversary, they asked me, Roger Robinson, Francesca Beard, a couple of other poets, to write a piece for this big happening they were doing around the theme of protest. And I was at the time, this is where I sound really middle class and wanky. So at the time I was in Singapore. And I was like, oh. And this is important that I was there because I couldn't get any weed. Because they literally kill you if you smoke weed. Even if you smoke cigarettes. You can imagine I was just like so nervous the entire time I was there. But what it meant was that I was able to have an intimacy with the page that I'd been avoiding for a long time. And the theme I was given was protest. And this is what I wrote. This is the last one I'm going to do. It takes about 10 minutes. Some girls fall from sun-lit skies straight down into flat pack. Floral dresses grab their smiles from a hook behind the door. Rescue their faces from riptides of mirrors. Some girls are always falling. Round 1. The body as battleground. You fall and miss your body entirely. Land somewhere in enemy territory behind the lines. Your body, a foreign country you cannot get a visa for. Your skin, a parachute caught in tree branches. You awaken in no man's land. Gunfire from over the horizon, and women are crucified on hashtags across the dark hills. Your trench is crowded with dead women, wearing faces that try to escape them, and the clothes of someone you once knew. There are landmines buried deep beneath your skin, and no one understands them. In between the battle cry and the bedroom is this sticky quiet, this no man's land. This is where you live. Men explode when you least expect it. All these lifetimes searching for body. Round 2, the body as protest. Born backward, bright back and wide-skinned, rolling cigarettes and shirt sleeves, skyline chin, Levi 501s curled up to cuff, lip the same, white t-shirt, so they can project themselves on you, tsunami quiff, and black boots whose roots spread and tangle through the center of the earth. You don't wear makeup to prove you have not made anything up. This is your face. Your father's friends gave it to you one Christmas Eve, 1973. You unwrapped it beneath a decorated tree from which the rest of your family swung. They sipped cocktails as you slowly disappeared, swaying gently to that wail of celebration, the harbinger of party. You cut your first suit from the thick silence when you enter a room. They call you Butch. The name derived from Butch Cassidy. You are the descendant of outlaws, irony incarnate, woman butchered, cut into select meats, middle distance stare, shoulder, breast, wild tongue, they fear you. Boy, dyke, Diesel female sodomite, lady faggot, bulldagger queer pervert, gold star silverback stud, invert, kiki shemale, drag, drone, baby butch tomboy, stone. But if you are a stone, you are a chip off the mountain, and you join an avalanche of wrong walking women, shaven heads like tumbling rocks. You keep them close, they are. Rosary. On the dance floor, we are tidal. Heckle the night, passing nods between us and handshakes that stop our handshaking. We are untamed, a wilderness of women. We are waste ground. What a waste, love. Nothing grows on us, barren and sterile and unuseful female, empty as church pews. The wind rattles its fists inside our wombs. Come on then, snake boy. Come now, heretic healer. Where are the maths that solve us? How do we fit into your algae bra, your binary code? Our bodies are political placards. And we dance as demonstration of independence. We revolution in the living room, uprising in the public toilets, insurgency in the suburbs. Fear is a girl backing into her face. Not camp enough to be your best friend, love. Our closet a strata of fossilized clothes, girl, pelt. Not funny enough for your talk show, bruv. Is it that a woman without makeup is a woman without a face? Who knew that when we were cleansing, we were erasing our whole existence? Round 3. The body as trespass. Dyke. You are a trespasser in your own body. The landowners are men who pass by you in the street. In Accrington, cars stammer and words ejaculate from half-open windows. Your mother's phone rings in the middle of the night. Shh, do you know about, shh, do you know about, shh, 3 Pentecosts with Nazi insignia break into your home. God is an atheist who no longer believes in himself, and they unscrew the light bulb slowly, eyes fixed on the unmade-up girl, trembling defiance. They whisper a prayer for you to leave your family. You do. 13. And a man pulls you over the back seat of a bus and stubs his kiss out on your cheek. Slowly, a boxer's embrace, but he doesn't throw the punch. He posts it. You wait by letterboxes, flinch when it chatters, never answer the phone. In Brixton, men cradle their fists like babies and watch as you walk past as though they are thin-ribbed cats in the undergrowth, and you, a small, shaven-headed bird. There's a reason. Women are compared to birds, and it's got to do with wings. Some songs harden on the wind. Some girls are kept in gilded cages on suburban mantelpieces. 18, out, clubbing with the crew, a baby Butch in the abattoir of beauty, the quiver and frantic, white girls with bindies, white boys with dreadlocks, Saris and docks, tribal tattoos. We are the modern primitives, wearing our heritage like white flags, like cowardice. And you dance as though you are stamping out flames, as though your boots are hammering in the last nails to the coffin of the old gods. Strangers hug and tell each other's secrets. You are ecstatic. But then the light looks away. Skinny wolves separate you from the flock. Wallpaper, the drugs, no longer working as they. Amber, IUU, aberration. And they must conquer what they cannot name. 23. You finish. Rehearsals in the city with nowhere to sleep. So you wish the posh kids good night. And you walk, 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 and he finds you quickly. And when you come round, you are empty, and his eyes are full, and above you, twin gods. This is the first time you think you're going to be killed. And when you're not, it's a disappointment. The morning after pill is our communion wafer, and you are forgiven your trespasses. You learn quickly. Men are broken things, breaking things. Round 4, the body as cemetery. The first time you die, you drink a bottle of cleaning fluid, and moths of nurses wrap you in white swaddling curses. Fuck you, they whisper. A back alley lullaby. Fuck you, they croon, as you're interred into your hospital bed. And when the mourners come, you seem happy. A picnic in a mortuary. The third time you die, it's classic, cinematic. A bottle of your mother's sleeping pills, you swallow them without water, watching a film about a girl who is not loved. The film ends, the cinema empties, but no one notices. The thin thing lying there with a mouth like an earthquake in a country no one can spell. They don't find you till morning, and when they do, you are packed off to the fat priests of psychiatry to apologize. You lie, and your smile is a torn cunt, a split. Round 5, the body as backroom. Each night, we have a lock-in, a meet at the back of my heart, smoking in circles, handing grins between us like pass the parcel, opening each layer of the smile until the pith is revealed. We are ferocious women, eating our children, our youth, stepping out of our skin and leaving them draped behind us like soiled wedding dresses falling into each other's mouths. This is love, furious love. We die slowly. Cigarettes stubbed against obsidian skies. A brain explodes into night butterflies. A car loses its grip on reality. Suicide by the bouquet full. Not one of my friends was allowed to live in her body unaccompanied. Always a landlord. Always a lodger. Round 6, the body as haunted house. In sleep, my body is a haunted house. There are footsteps along fallopian corridors. The corridor is a rope strung across a mouth that have been woken by blurred voices without bodies, quiet arguments in my basement. Once, I was possessed by a small girl who looked the same as me, who ate herself on a Sunday afternoon while her parents were downstairs, hardwiring their hangovers and Christmas tunes looped in nooses. My heart is a church bell and nobody visits, and God is a man with his hands in his pockets, watching. Round 7. The body as uprising. Oh, you bayonet boys, you truncheon rub. My face doesn't fit my face, but your fist does. Years from now, no one will remember how we fought, how each bruised knuckle was a white boy's head bent in prayer. No one will remember the love, how alike it is to rage, how screams made corporeal are rainbows, how rainbows became corporate logos, how we carved our epitaphs into stone walls. No one will remember unpicking acronyms by candlelight, so fuck it. I'll be in the back bar of heaven. Kaz will be getting around in, releasing that laugh, wild birds escaping her mouth, and none of this will matter. I'll be riding the ghost roads with Valentine, bareback, knee clenched on a Harley. I'll be scuffing the city with Dudzilly. Men will stare like open shaft mines. I'll be walking the white lines with Angel, tight mouth, antelope heart. I can't remember the names of all my dead friends. They're here now. Our grief, a leather jacket. Our laughter, static. As we fade to a sepia, the color of blood mixed to water disappearing down a plug hole, much like the meeting of our legs. Remember this. My whole fucking life is a protest. Thank you.
You absolutely can stand up and keep clapping. Joelle looked over at me and nodded. And I was like, oh shit, I have to go and talk. That was absolutely incredible. Oh God, I'm very rarely speechless and will tell you that normally I don't shut my fucking mouth. Okay, all that I will say is thank you for coming out and attending Nottingham Poetry Festival. With Gregory Woods, another round of applause, please. And of course, Joelle Taylor, because, my goodness. All that I will say as a queer person that's currently trying not to cry, which is very embarrassing, is I just feel like I've spent a whole evening just reading love letters and listening to battle cries, and I couldn't feel more privileged and humbled to be here. So thank you so much for joining me for this part of Nottingham Poetry Festival. And now I'm going to be incredibly gauche and say, please buy all of our books. I also have my book with me. I forgot to say anything because I was too busy having a nice time. If you'd like to buy a copy of Choose Your Own Mediocre, I have some in my purse. But yes, please, again, visit the bookstore, look at the brochure, and enjoy the rest of your evening and the rest of the festival. Yeah, that's it. I'm going to go and get a drink and have a vape. I'll see you outside. My goodness, take care. Go home safe.